Hello, guys, and God bless. This is part five. And Jesus says in John 16:33, He says, These things I have spoken unto you, that you might have peace. In the world you shall have trouble or tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So, as we see, they start to build their temple, and it looks like everything's going well. And then walks the adversaries, those that are going to come against this building of the temple. Or, as we talked about, the temple being you, rebuilding you, showing you this information. The adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard the children of the captivity built the temple unto the Lord God of Israel. And they came to Zerubbabel and to the chief of the fathers and said unto them, Let us build with you, for we seek your God, as you do. And we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Ashur, which brought us up here. We see adversaries coming against those building the temple. Initially, the adversaries seem to want to join in and help and establish this temple. This is a deception, plain and simple. A change of heart must take place. To me, this sounds like lip service. And if you look at Revelation 12, you'll see a handoff taking place. This handoff, both in the track race that we talked about and our race, are at a very critical time. Both runners hold the baton. When a handoff is conducted in a track race, both runners will hold on to that baton for a certain amount of period of time until the one taking the baton or the one releasing the baton is sure that the runner has a hold of it. Let me pull up a picture here. This handoff is critical. Both runners will actually have a hold of this baton at the same period of time for a certain amount of steps until the strong runner or the new runner is sure that it has been passed off accordingly. This is the handoff that we're seeing in this temple here. We have the captives coming out of Babylon, and we also have the remnant who's helping rebuild this temple back in Jerusalem, who've been taken out of Babylon, been taken out of the world system. You see here how this guy, he's extremely tired, okay? And I want you to keep this guy in mind. He's the one that is in anguish. He's the one that's in birth at this point. And he's trying to hand off this baton to the next runner who's fresh and ready to go and who's been revived. Just like I think I shared my testimony a little bit, how the first, when I first got a hold of God's information and figured, this is all true, it was a very refreshing time for me. I took off like a bolt of lightning. I was in the Bible reading it 7 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever the case was, studying, looking up words, studying this, studying that. I had a lot of energy. It was just very critical. I was very, very fresh in the race that I was going to be running. And now as time has gone on, it's been 4 years and some months, and I'm exhausted. I'm literally exhausted. It's hard for me to stay focused. It's hard for me to study at times. It's hard for me to do a lot of these things. It's hard for me to witness. So I'm becoming very fatigued. As you can see, this runner is here, or this runner is here. And that's what we see in Revelation 12. And let's take a look at Revelation 12 here. Okay, you have this woman who's in anguish, travailing in birth, pain to be delivered. She's with child and cry, travailing in birth, pain to be delivered. And then you have this dragon. Okay, I'm going to talk about him in a second. What this is this woman is the church. Okay, the churches are always symbolized with women. You have the harlot that rides the beast. That's the whore of Babylon. That's the false church, the false church. It's idol worship. This woman here, This woman here is in anguish. She's trying to give birth. And what is she trying to give birth to? Well, it's the man child. Well, what's the man child? And we're going to get to that in here in just a second. But I want you to understand here a couple things before we go back. The dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to devour her child as soon as it was born. Okay? Keep this in mind. To devour the child as soon as it was born. Okay, and then you have the woman fled into the wilderness, where she have a place prepared for by God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Okay, then you have the angels that fight against this old serpent, and then um, you have a woman here that brought forth the man child, and she was given the wings of a great eagle that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for time, and half a time from the face of the serpent. If you do the word study on this, this means outside of time, okay? From the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast forth out of his mouth a flood, and we can talk about that later. Um, but what I want you to understand is you have one woman flies into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for time, half a time. And up here you have a woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared for of God that they would feed her there. There's two different women here. There's two different churches here. Okay? And this is a handoff. Okay, and I'm going to explain that right now. Okay. We have our adversaries. Okay. If the handoff is not conducted correctly, it will be dropped. Okay, and incidentally, if you want, you can do a study on Paul and Timothy. It's the same thing happening there. And we'll pull up that verse maybe here in a minute. From this point, let's look at Revelation 12. Okay, we just did. The woman is the church in pain trying to deliver this child. From Scripture, this is a man child. We just talked about that. Jesus, of course, is the man child. But who is Jesus? Look past the physical birth of this. They are trying to birth the truth, which is Jesus Christ. The truth is what is being delivered. The way, the truth, and the life. This is why we're in anguish. This is why the bride of Christ right now is on Facebook, on YouTube, witnessing to people, trying to show people the truth. And of course, you have all these other, things going on, and there's a lot of distractions out there, but we are trying to show people what is going to happen, that the Bible is true and it's unfolding before your eyes and you're not seeing it. This is what is being delivered right now. In the text, it states that the dragon, the serpent, the old devil, stands before the woman to devour the child as soon as it's born. In other words, he wants to snuff out the man child before the next woman or church can lay hold of this. Okay? This is the handoff. This is the passing of the baton. And Satan will use every trick in the book: fear, intimidation, physical needs, the mark of the beast. He can to subdue the man child and to keep the truth from manifesting. Further in the chapter, we see that the women are both caught up and taken. Now, that's a separate study. I'm not going to get into it, but just know God is going to provide a place for learning and growing for the next leg of your walk. Okay? I believe it's going to be a lot of stuff will be outside the time-space continuum. And that goes back to Revelation 6. If you look at Revelation 6 and Revelation 12, they're very similar, and I believe they could be one and the same, just in a different part of the book. But the time-space continuum is going to change, and this is where God will come in to start the growing of the next church. Okay? That's what's going on in Revelation 12. It's a handoff. Let's pull up Timothy real quick and Paul. Okay, so right here in 2 Timothy 4:6, for now I'm ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. See, Paul knew he had finished his race. He knew the end of the course, just like we know right now. I mean, something big is about ready to happen, because we're all feeling this. We're all feeling this tiredness. We're all feeling this. It's with every believer that's trying to pass off this man child. I have fought the good fight. I have finished my course. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth, there's a crown of righteousness. Now, it's not done. Now, Paul goes on to pass away, but it's not over, okay, for us. This will be a time of great reanointing, latter rains, gifts from God, the lighting of the candle. So we're going to continue this race. Some people, there's 100 different theories on, what the bride is actually going to do. I believe there's certain jobs for different people, but at this point in time, it ain't over until Christ comes here to establish his throne. But there will be a change. That's definitely going to occur. the new church will also come into existence, the church of Smyrna. All right, let's go back here. Now, we talk about this. Let's talk about this Esarhaddon, king of Assur, and he's in this verse here. For we seek your God as you do, and we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Assur, which brought us up here. What does this mean? Okay, let's take a look at this guy. What I find most interesting about this guy is his story directly parallels the biblical account of Joseph. He was betrayed by his brothers. He became very high in the kingdom. Joseph was also betrayed by his brothers. He was taken to Egypt where he was enslaved, and then he eventually comes, you know, very high up in the political arena there. Esarhaddon flees to Assyria, the capital of Nineveh. He takes refuge in the west for his own safety. Both of their fortunes are eventually restored. They both beat incredible odds. They rise to powerful positions. And so, what's going on with this guy? Who is he? Well, his dad was a famous builder, and his name means sin has replaced my brothers. He is remembered for his military campaigns against Babylon and Judea and for his building programs. Notable builder. It was under him that Assyrian art reached its peak. His building projects included the beautification of Nineveh, a canal, and it was also the prototype for the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon, if not the actual Hanging Gardens. King Hezekiah initially thought to bought him off without taking his country, and his dad Sennacherib wanted Jerusalem's submission. Okay, so what's the big deal? What are we talking about here? Well, his brothers ended up killing, or sorry, his sons ended up killing him after his failed attempt to capture Jerusalem. And his son, the youngest son, was Esarhaddon, okay, a famous builder, and his followers wanted to help rebuild the temple. It's quite possible that Haddon was a Nephilim, and this picture portrayed on Wikipedia shows his height was quite substantial. We have these people here, and of course, this would be Esarhaddon. He rebuilt the entire city, temples, homes, and streets. Masonry. And to make sure everyone would remember their benefactor, inscribe the bricks and stone with his name. So what does this mean? All right, you have the people of God preparing the new church. Okay, as it's stated, this will be a vulnerable time for many reasons. The world at this point is not going to be in the best of conditions. War, all these things will be going on, the catastrophic events, war, food, water will be scarce, families will be split, jobs lost, the mark of the beast, I'm sure, will have arrived. What this verse means in context of which we're studying it, is it will be a false help, a false immortality that will be offered. It will be the bonding of the iron and the clay, the fallen angels or aliens and humanity. This bonding has many fronts. Okay, the mark of the beast is one of them. The iron, the flesh, and the metal all go along with the catastrophic events, replacing your limbs with better, more improved limbs. So my initial suspicion of this was, as I read it, was he's a builder and he's an Nephilim. The two primary ingredients for Satan's plan of false immortality. And of course, just like he said in the garden, you will be like gods. What does his name mean? Okay, Esarhaddon, when you break it down, very simply, to bind. It also appears to betray or rebel. And it also means means iron, to sharpen, which is tied to iron. So what I'm saying here is you have this guy that's coming on the scene, attempting to help a vulnerable church, who probably has nothing, who probably is, wondering what's going on, still has probably questions that need to be answered. And of course, a false or an immortality portrayed is an immortality that's going to be portrayed as evil, disguised as good, will definitely be a hindrance. And that's what I'm saying in a sense. Now, that's what he's going to do. He's going to rebuild. He's going to want to, uh, and I believe this is somewhat of a picture of the Antichrist. And he's going to offer a worldly solution. It's not going to be an eternal solution. It's going to be a worldly solution based upon false immortality and false hope, is what it is. And that's why he's coming on the scene. Now, there's a movie reference. S.R. Haddon is named, and it actually says this in the book or in the document on the Wikipedia, that S.R. Haddon is the same as S.R. Haddon in the movie Contact, which is a movie about alien contact. When I saw the excerpt of this character in Jodie Foster, I knew my suspicions had been verified. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little video here of this now. And I just want you to keep in mind of a false hope, a false immortality. And that's what this is. The final piece of the message is discovered when S.R. Haddon, a billionaire in multiple high-tech industries with an obsessive personal interest in the concept of immortality, suggests to Jodie Foster for phase modulation. All right, so I'm going to play this little quick video, and what it does is it confirms the suspicions that I had about what this guy is actually offering. It's a false help. It's a false hope, is what it is. Give you a little backdrop. He's on this spaceship, or some sort of in the air somewhere. It's been a long time since I've seen this movie, but essentially he has been watching her, and he is going to use her to pilot this ship. But he does something very strange here, and I think you'll see it. I think you'll catch on to it.
Dr. Arroway. I presume.
Mr. Haddon.
I've had my eye on you a long time, Doctor. I consider you one of my most valuable long-term investments. And when it comes to my investments, I always do my homework. Eleanor Ann Arroway, born 25th August 1964, De Pere, Wisconsin. Mother, Joanna, died from complications during childbirth. Early testing indicated high predisposition towards science and mathematics. Father, Theodore, advised to provide enrichment activities along these lines, did so conscientiously until his death from myocardial infarction, November 10, 1974. Graduated from high school in 1979, almost 2 full years early. Awarded full scholarship MIT, graduated magna cum laude. Doctoral work, Caltech, where you did breakthrough work on the lanthanide dope ruby maser, dramatically increasing the sensitivity of radio telescopes. Subsequently, offered a teaching position at Harvard University, which you turned down, to pursue SETI work at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. Changes in NSF policy gave rise to certain funding problems. At which point, you came to my attention.
You compromised our security codes.
Once upon a time, I was a hell of an engineer. Please, sit, Doctor. I have guests so rarely, it's important to me that they feel welcome in my home.
You live here?
I find it convenient to keep my interests mobile. Anyway, I've had my fill of life on the ground.
Well, I guess I should. I guess I should thank you for having bailed me out all that time.
I know a good bet when I see one. Earl Grey, no sugar, no milk, I believe.
What am I doing here?
The powers that be have been very busy lately, falling over each other to position themselves for the game of the millennium. Maybe they can help deal you back in.
I didn't realize that I was out.
Oh, maybe not out, but certainly being handed your hat. I've had a long time to make enemies, Doctor. There are many governments, business interests, even religious leaders that would like to see me depart this earth. I'll grant them their wish soon enough. But before I do, I wish to make a small contribution, a final gesture of goodwill to the people of this little planet that have given, from whom I have taken so much.
You found the primer.
Clever girl.
Thanks.
Pages on pages of data. Over 63,000 in all. And on the perimeter of each,
Alignment symbols, registration mark, but they don't line up.
they do. If you think like a pagan. An alien intelligence has got to be more advanced. That means efficiency functioning on multiple levels and in multiple dimensions.
Yes, of course. Where's the primer?
You'll see. Every three-dimensional page contains a piece of the primer. And there it was all the time, staring you in the face. Buried within the message itself is
The key to decoding it. Within the layering of the matrix, we have these basic equations. So with this very elementary foundation, they've given us a kind of general scientific vocabulary.
Once upon a time, I was a heck of an engineer, he says. Um, Once again, offering the false immortality through alien, demonic, fallen angelic channels, if you will, or methods. Um, anyway, I believe that's what the Lord is trying to say in His Word here. That this guy is probably a antichrist type figure who's going to try to, at the most critical time, when this house is trying to be built, when the people of God are trying to stand up and learn what's been going on, this will be the curveball he throws to distract, not necessarily more than distract, obviously, try to get them to fail, get them to get back into the world, get back into the world system. And you'll see that here in just a second with these verses. It goes on to say, but Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief fathers of Israel said unto them, you have nothing to do with us to build a house unto our God, but we ourselves together will build unto the Lord of Israel. And then it becomes a problem. So they hired counselors against them to frustrate their purpose. It's going to get worse, okay? It's going to start off as, hey, almost like a welcoming committee. We're going to help you rebuild your temple. We're going to help you do this. And this goes along with the actual temple. One thing the Lord has told me is the third temple that's going to be built on the ground. It's almost like parallels the same thing in the spiritual that we're trying to do with the new church, that we're trying to do with um, birthing this truth. So it's the same thing. There's going to be counselors against us to frustrate the purpose. These people are going to come against us. There will be trouble. The lies will just continue and continue and continue. Of course, Satan's going to try to come against this plan. Um, at this point in the story, a letter is sent to Artaxerxes for the Jews to cease rebuilding the temple. That's Ezra 4:12, portraying that a rebellion comes forth with the walls established. They demand that the decree be located in order to prove that the order was indeed given. So, in other words, this part I found a little confusing, but they sent this letter to Artaxerxes and basically like, hey, prove that this order came forth because we're not believing it. In other words, they're trying to delay, disrupt, destroy, trying to dishearten what's going on with the rebuilding of the temple. So this is actually done. Um, and this is what's stated here in Ezra 4:12 through 16. But they like to come to us in Jerusalem, building the rebellious and bad city, have set up walls thereof and joined foundations. Be known now unto the king that if this city be built, and the walls are set up again, then it will not pay toll, tribute, and custom, and so thou shalt endamage the revenue of kings. What does that sound like? This is just like coming out of the world, okay? Um, it's it's all about money. It's all about revenue to the kings, um, because they know that they were all encompassed in God. They relied on God for everything. They followed His laws and statutes. They were cut off from the world essentially, in the world trade, in the world. Um, if they followed God, now that when they didn't, they of course did do all these things. But if they come under, they separate themselves from the commerce essentially, and that gives no money to the kings. This is a rebellious city and hurtful unto kings and provinces. You see what I'm saying here? They're looking at this as it's. That's why God says, if you are of this world, the love of the God is not in you. All right, because you're of the world. You're of the world system. All right, the beast system. That's what I want to make sure you understand here. Uh, the mark is going to keep everyone in the world. That's the whole point of it. It keeps you dependent, and also it allows, the second thing that it does, or the, I guess the more severe, is it'll allow this fallen angel or this entity to dwell inside you, and that's all in the Mark videos. But this is what's going to, money. It's all about money. The money to the kings. Just like us, we work, we pay our taxes. Why? So that they can get money. Revenue, money. Now it all makes sense. If you take them out of the world, how can they contribute to the wealth of kings? Those that rely solely on God will not need to contribute to the world. The mark is going to be a major control factor of all humanity. While this letter was sent up, the king and all the work was suspended on the second temple. So it caused the men to cease, and the city not be built. And another commandment was given: take heed now that you fail not to do this. Why damage? Why should damage grow to hurt of the kings? Once again, all about money. And then it becomes, they were made to cease by force and power. Right? The word of God will be outlawed, essentially. You will not be able to worship, to assemble, to read your Bible, to share it. It is going to be force and power. So it starts off as, hey, we'll help you build your temple. And now it comes down to this. We're going to make you stop by force and power. Makes no sense, right? They haven't been with us the whole time. And then it comes full circle. You go to Ezra 5, and it talks about the prophets Haggai and Zechariah, the son of Edu, prophesied unto the Jews that were in Judea, in Jerusalem, in the name of God unto them. And then rose up Zerubbabel and Josh and Jeshua, and they began to build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. So pretty much came full circle back to where we were in the beginning. Now, there is something I want to point out here. If you go on to chapter, it kind of goes through some names and whatnot. If you go on to chapter 9 in Ezra, it talks about how they fall away from God again, and they go and take on strange wives. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a video on that or not. This was, by the way, this was hard for me. I've been under a major attack recently, and it was hard for me to finish this. But as you can tell, I'm kind of stumbling around a little bit. But normally things come smooth to me. This was a little harder. Um, but I'm not sure if this is the last one or not. But just know it's come full circle. Now we have the these two are gonna rise up to help build this temple, and we talked about them at the beginning of the series. But just know that this guy um, is a builder, a giant and a builder, a mason and a builder, a Nephilim, and he's going to come against. And at first, like I said, it's going to seem like, he's there to help. I'll help you establish your temple. I'll help you do these things. And just as it's going to happen on the ground, it's just the same as it's going to happen on the ground in Daniel, of the rebuilding of the third temple. The Antichrist will come in. They'll have their sacrifices. They're going to be able to build their temple, and then all of a sudden he is going to turn against them. And as you can see, it gets serious, more and more serious with the verses as you go. They hired counselors to frustrate their purpose, and then it was, they got to arguing. They're not providing anything for the revenue, for the state, and then it becomes force and power. Okay, and that's where you're going to get your, door to door, taking people out, um, etc. Okay, I hope it blesses you guys. It was a little hard for me to finish. Just if you would say a prayer for me, and God bless you all. Take care.